Welcome to Matt's Book Reviews. So this is actually going to be, as with much else, I will say, like the previous episode that I just recorded, it may or may not be quite a gap between this one as it comes out and that one as it came out, but I just recorded it earlier this morning. It felt like a pretty big reach for Matt's Book Reviews, but then I thought, it sort of was centered around the hero's journey. And, I threw in some, references to Scott Adams and Stefan Molyneux books. It's your white supremacist hour, isn't it, Matt? Oh, yeah. But it was sort of, based around the hero's journey. So that's, Vogler with his, the writer's journey. And of course, Joseph Campbell, blah, blah, blah. That's not no connection. Now today we may be, in this episode, we may be veering on no connection or veering close to it because I'm doing a CD haul. So many book channels talk about book hauls, but what I often do, I used to do book hauls more, but I've got a lot of books now, and I actually just went to the bookstore and I was looking at a Philip Roth book. I think was it called The Ghostwriter? Or it may have been The Ghostwriter or something writer. And it actually, I was pretty taken with it. I picked it up. I carried it around the store a little bit. It was apparently Philip Roth writing about a character who was a writer and was staying in some kind of farmhouse or something with, was it a writing teacher? But then there was this woman there, and she was had been a student of the teacher, or maybe he had a teacher long ago that she was also a student of at some other point. But that, I was holding it thinking, not only do I feel that I would actually read this and read through it, but I think that I would really enjoy it, and it would also be fairly inspirational or fairly inspiring because, similarly to how I imagine, a drummer would feel inspired, or really anyone would feel inspired by the movie Whiplash, which is just, I think it's one of the most beautiful movies about, it came from what Matt McKinley would call the Not Ilk probably, but I think it's still one of the most beautiful movies about sort of, with the instructor and the drum student, it's sort of about almost the universe throwing as much shit at you as you can handle and then throwing more at you and more and more. And it's the more you put yourself through, the universe will keep pushing you and throwing more and more at you to the point where you achieve some kind of transcendence. And it's just a gorgeous, beautiful moment of you're doing what you've been doing and you just break through to the level of just supernatural mastery of it or something. It's a gorgeous movie. I love Whiplash. I don't know if it's in my top 10, but it might be in my top 15 movies of all time. It's so good. I love Whiplash. That was the year that Birdman came out, I think, and a few other movies. And that was back when, the movies that the Oscars would cover were generally well received. I am sort of conflicted about the newer years of the Oscars, because actually, as I was looking at books in Barnes & Noble, and I was looking in the poetry section, and I saw the cover that they had for the Best American Poetry 2023, and it just looked like the most libby, I've got nothing against women in general, but I've a lot against a lot of particular women for doing a lot of particular things, but I have nothing against women in general, but it just looked like the most blatant, women's empowerment kind of libby kind of shit. And I looked at it and I was oh, and then I thought, you know what? That might be their audience. For a book called The Best American Poetry, I might be one of the relatively few people who would be interested in the Best American Poetry 2023 who wouldn't be turned on by that cover. Like, it's probably maybe, I would imagine it's more than that, but it could be seen as, all other things aside, it could be seen as a good advertising decision to put that kind of image on the cover. It's like this kind of like pretentious, doesn't care about anything, just really libby, and like, you know, has a bunch of like firm beliefs, and a lot of them are just like really shitty and really like go against natural law. Like, that's probably their audience. And it's like, then there's me, like, oh, like, I don't know, I'm still kind of interested in looking at the Best American Poetry 2023, but you're doing a lot to try to ward me away from this. And you know, now how did I get from the Philip Roth book to that? Well, in any case, the Philip Roth book, I was like, oh, like I was attracted to it. I was holding it. I was walking around with it. I was holding it. And it was like, I imagine I would have had a good time. Oh, Whiplash. Oh, yeah, okay. So to go back to the Oscars expediently, the Oscars, they've sort of taken on like sort of an artsy, like an art house aesthetic recently, and like a lot of, or some of what you'll hear like with like people like Ben Shapiro and stuff criticizing the movies of the Oscars, like I think he was talking about the movie Coda. I'm not sure what it's about. I haven't seen Coda, but I don't think I've seen it. But I think he described like a scene where it was just like the camera was just like on a fountain, like in somebody's garden or something, for like a series of minutes. Like it was just a shot of a fountain like running, and like that's what it was. And like he was saying like, nobody wants to see this, like this is bullshit. And I was thinking like, you know, that sounds pretty cool. Like I really like that artsy stuff, but I really disagree with like all of these, you know, vehemently, probably more so than Ben Shapiro would, really, or, you know, I don't know what he would really think, but, you know, more so than, like, I would probably make a more vehement argument against a lot of that kind of stuff, that kind of ideological stuff, than he would. But I really like the art house stuff. And so, like, I think Whiplash is an example of a fairly artsy movie going to the Oscars. Like, it feels fairly independent. I mean, it had Miles Teller and the guy, you know, that the yelly guy, yelly to use a word from Stefan Molyneux describing himself. I think he described himself as like the yelly big forehead guy or something. But yelly or not, you know, the guy who played the he'll never J.K. Simmons. Simmons will never live this down playing that guy from Spider-Man. But I was going to say the guy who played the editor of the Daily Bugle from Spider-Man, this Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, and possibly movies plural, or movie plural. If I said movies plural, I wouldn't have to say the plural. But, you know, J. Jonah Jameson was his name, JJJ. There's probably some kind of like gematria stuff there. But FFF is 666, so I don't know. JJJ is that's 6 plus 4. That's 111. 3. Okay, it breaks down to 3, you guys. For the first letters of the name. But anyway, yeah. It's just, I would love more, like, I love that artsy stuff. Like, one of the black metal albums that I think I may end up indeed putting or keeping on the list that I'm going to do of my top 25 metal albums, or that I might do on Matt Thoughts. It might be done by the time this is posted, and long posted by the time this is posted, but one of my favorite black metal albums is by a band called Imperial Triumphant, and it's just so artsy. Like, they've got Kenny G playing the saxophone in the middle of like this Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick style, like Illuminati party, and like the the band members are just wearing these golden Illuminati masks, and I think that's what they generally do when they play on stage. It's like they're like Daft Punk, but the Illuminati Daft Punk playing black metal, and it's just so. And the music itself it's not just like an artsy visual aesthetic, but the music itself is so like avant-garde, and it's black metal, but it's very sort of, it's almost like David Lynch black metal. It's so good. And like the guy from Quest for Metal, he described them as like, I think he described them as one of the sort of more leftist bands that he happened to be putting lower on his like black metal band list. In whatever video it was, maybe it was like list of his tier list ranking of his favorite newer black metal bands in general, or the 2010s black metal bands. And he like put Imperial Triumphant, I think he put him in like C or D or something. But he said like, oh, all these leftist bands, I'm not doing this on purpose, but I just, I'm not a fan of them, or something like that. But he described Imperial Triumphant as like being just formless, or like it just essentially, it was like he was describing it. In other words, you could say he was describing it as like more avant-garde than he would have liked. And I think he said the album that I have by them is Spirit of Ecstasy. And I think he alluded to putting one of their albums on like his top albums of the year list. And I think that might have been the one. So who knows? Maybe I'm more aligned with Questy in this than I thought. And this is just the one album by them that I would have like really gotten into. But I really like Imperial Triumphant, probably for the reasons that Questy doesn't like it, and perhaps I would like many of those black metal bands that he was putting lower among the rank of Imperial Triumphant, or, in the rank of it. I might indeed like those bands that he was describing as leftist, because perhaps they were doing more avant-garde stuff, and so it's like, with books, like Philip Roth, I'm pretty sure he's pretty freaking leftist. A great movie, by the way, a movie called Listen Up, Philip. Apparently it's not based on Philip Roth, but it like the main character is like sort of a stand-in, or like kind of inspired by Philip Roth, or like, similar enough to like Ham on Rye by Charles Bukowski, except I think Ham on Rye is explicitly like semi-autobiographical, whereas this is just semi-biographical, but maybe not explicitly. But then again, the movie is called Listen Up Philip, so Philip Roth. It has that guy who seems really insufferable in it, who's in like a lot of Wes Anderson movies, I think. But he's so good, and I think he does tend to be good. Maybe it's just something about like the way he looks or something. Maybe it's just like his sort of longish hair that in some movies, maybe it's just the Darjeeling Limited, which I love Darjeeling Limited, but maybe it's just sort of maybe it's his aesthetic that doesn't appeal to me. But I mean, in that movie anyway, he was brutal. He was awesome, but brutal in sort of a subtle and kind of faint way, similar to Greenberg, with Ben Stiller. There you go. That's a Freudian slip maybe, but Ben Stiller being just this brutally awkward, like totally selfish, but not selfish in a way that I can look back on my life. And actually, the way Ben Stiller is, I was thinking of Ben Shapiro again, the way Ben Stiller is in the movie Greenberg, I think that's how I felt for like, in those periods of my life where I was talking about being like withholding and just feeling like I didn't know what to say and stuff. Like that's, if you watch Greenberg, I think the impression you get from Ben Stiller there might be pretty similar to the impression that you would have gotten from me back then. So if insofar as how I was navigating the world or whatever in those times in that movie, insofar as Ben Stiller's character there in Greenberg was similar enough to the way I was, navigating things at a certain time in my life, I don't think that he was being intentionally selfish, and I don't think he was being intentionally obnoxious. I think truly it was, he comes off as just the worst fucking guy, but he's the worst guy in a way where it's like, he's not even he's struggling. He doesn't even, it's not like he's taking advantage of people. It's just like he's being really inconsiderate and just really just awful, just really awful. But he doesn't, it's like a forgive him for he knows not what he does situation, as opposed to a situation of somebody going around stealing things, or somebody going around insulting people or punching people, or attacking, saying oh fuck you, or being really obnoxious. He's really insufferable in that movie, but he's insufferable in a way that I was probably acting insufferably in my own life. And when I was doing that, looking back on it, it wasn't oh, I'm setting out to be an a-hole, I'm setting out to be really inconsiderate, I'm setting out to be really self-absorbed and just just treating in interestingly subtle ways, treating everyone around me like shit. I probably was doing that, but I didn't I didn't know how not to do that. It was as if I was walking with crutches, and the behavior that I was doing that was so insufferable was just the slowness of my walking. It's yeah, I'm walking on crutches. I don't feel like I can walk faster. And then I was able to start walking without crutches. And I watched that movie, and it's a movie about a guy proverbially walking with crutches. And it's yeah, he was walking with crutches. He's walking slowly, but it's not like he's trying to walk slowly. It's just that, I guess it's sort of like a psychosomatic crutches, maybe. It's not like he's necessarily trying to walk slowly. It's that he's having difficulty, And, you might say, well, Matt, you've almost got your breakthrough. Now you just need to apply that to everybody in the world. And it's but here's the thing. I don't think it really does apply to everybody in the world. I think there are plenty of, maybe more so than ever. Although, I think there are some people who are, becoming nicer than ever these days, but maybe more so than ever, there are plenty of people in the world who are just actually evil, malicious, mean people. And then you have your people like Ben, I thought it's Ben Shapiro again, on Greenberg, in the movie, the Greenberg movie, in that movie, you have your people like Ben Stiller's character, the, eponymous character Greenberg, who aren't trying to be assholes. They're not trying to be malicious. They're not trying to be horrible to everyone around them, but they are. I'm not saying they are to say they're trying to be. I'm saying they are in that they are being horrible to everyone around them. They are being really just as my dad might have described it, painfully silent. They're being very selfish. They're just they're being awful, but they don't really they don't know that they're being awful. They don't even recognize. They don't recognize it, and also they're struggling as much as the people around them are struggling, but they're not doing it maliciously. Whereas, as you see with today in the world, there are so many people there are so many people these days who are, they're just evil, or they're being very malicious, and they're being shitty, and they're being sadistic, and they're being all these things intentionally, whereas I don't think it's really intentional, at least as far as I look back and see how I felt sort of behaving that way. I don't think it's really intentional with the Ben Stiller character in Greenberg. And maybe I just narrowly avoided saying Ben Shapiro again. In that movie, though, it's a great movie, similar to how Listen Up, Philip is a great movie, as a character study of, I think Listen Up, Philip ultimately is the better movie. Is Listen Up Philip as good as Frances Ha, though, by Noah Baumbach, who made Greenberg? No. Greta Gerwig, whom I almost said Shapiro there, whom Ben Stiller treats horribly, but he doesn't even realize it. Like, he treats her like I say, he treats her like fucking meat in Greenberg. But Greta Gerwig in Frances Ha, oh my goodness, that movie is so good. But Greenberg, it's really effective. But Listen Up Philip is such a good movie. And but here's the thing about Listen Up Philip. With that, I get the sense that it's still somewhat kind of like he knows not what he does scenario, but it's a little less like it is a little more like he's being maybe he's not being shitty to be shitty, but he's being knowingly shitty. Whereas Ben Shapiro in that movie, he's not knowingly shitty. And like, I was not being knowingly shitty back then. Like when I was acting like that, Ben Stiller. When I was acting like Ben Stiller in Greenberg in my life for years, I sort of sunk into it, and then I was able to claw myself, I was able to sort of rise out of it. But I was being shitty, I think, but I wasn't being knowingly shitty. Whereas I think the Philip Roth character, supposedly in Listen Up Philip, I think you can also sort of get the Philip Roth connections in that, because at a certain point in the movie, they show like book covers of the Philip character in the movie's writing, like the covers of his books, and they look just like those, or I don't know if they do, but something about them is reminiscent of like Philip Roth books. But maybe the titles mixed with the covers, or the fonts, or the colors. If you've looked at some like Philip Roth books, you might know what I mean. But yeah, it's like Ben Stiller's character, he's not being knowingly shitty. As far as he's similar to how I was, he's not being knowingly shitty, but he is being very shitty. The Listen Up Philip character, I think he's actually being a little less shitty than the Ben Stiller character in Greenberg in Listen Up Philip. But I think he's more knowingly shitty. I don't think he's totally knowingly shitty, but I think he's more knowingly shitty, but less deeply shitty. Whereas Ben Stiller in that movie is deeply shitty. He is very fucking deeply shitty, but he's not knowingly shitty. I would say maybe at all. I don't know if he's knowingly shitty, or if it's knowingly shitty. On some level, he might like get the impression, but if he's being knowingly shitty, it's like looking through a glass darkly, like he's not. It's so hazy, and it's so maybe difficult to see how he's being shitty and stuff, that it's just like, it's not very knowingly. Whereas I think the Listen Up Philip character is more knowingly shitty, but he's less shitty overall. But anyway. So I sort of ran myself out of the room with what I was going to do, but a lot of people do book hauls on, because I was talking about going to Barnes & Noble. A lot of people do book hauls on YouTube who have book review channels. I don't know how soon I would do a book haul, but it seems to me that I should read probably a lot more of my books before I start buying more books. So to have a book haul it would seem to me very gluttonous behavior. It would seem to me just like wasteful and just like not a great thing to do. However, one thing I will do, because I often, buy CDs and stuff. I will have music halls on this channel. Music halls. That's interesting. It's a Freudian slip. It's a music hall. I will, indeed music halls, but HAULS, not HALLS. I will maybe have more than just this, music halls on this channel. It's probably going to be mostly metal music, might be rap sometimes, might throw in a Joni Mitchell or something. I love Hey Jira, I love Blue. For my money, Joni Mitchell and those two albums is just, she's like an an angel come to earth. She is gorgeous and beautiful, and that is despite her like being, going along with the, rage in favor of the machine music artists who were so countercultural, and then all the stuff happened with the thing, all the stuff happened that you may think one way or the other about, and maybe some people aren't even really believing maybe some people don't even really buy it at all. Maybe there's some evidence to look at, but she was one of the characters came to mind. And then actors also came to mind. She was one of the artists who, there you go. I think that might have been the word I was sort of reaching for. Before these other fucking words got in my hands. She was one of the artists who basically seemed, I think, I have it somewhere in Matt Thoughts. I have a post called like Still a Genius or something, and like I talk about her being like one of the artists who apparently like said basically like, you've got to let the government do whatever it wants to you, or you're evil and a bad person, and you should be thrown off of whatever, and you should whatever. Should you, Nevertheless, Hejira and Blue are really good. But anyway, what CDs did Matt get today? In the music hall, what CDs did I get? Well, I'm going to go back to front. There was one CD that I was going out to get today. I wanted to get it in physical copy, and I did. I actually went past it in the Newberry Comics. They were playing Iron Maiden too. I said to the guy at the cash register, I was like, "You're playing some Maiden deep cuts today?" And he's like, "Oh, we play Maiden all the time." And I was like, "Oh, nobody could argue with Iron Maiden." He's like, "Yeah, people seem to not complain about it, or they seem to have good reactions to it, but it was whatever." I think they were probably just playing like one of their albums, but in any case, because I think more than one of the songs came up, but it was like Back to the Village or whatever the song is called, when I was up there commenting on it. And yeah, but anyway, he actually showed me where the CD I was looking for was, and I'm glad to have found it because that's what I was going out to get. But I got a few other CDs as well. So I got 4 CDs. This is my Music Hall HAU for the day. So first CD, I'm not sure what people think of it. It might be rated 0. But I love In the Court of the Dragon by Trivium. I adore that album. And that's one of the albums I think it may indeed or will be mentioned in Matt Thoughts 2, my top 25 metal albums. But In the Court of the Dragon by Trivium, I love it. It's so good. I heard that song multiple times on Metal Zone after I got out of jail, no less. I heard it multiple times. The title track, I think maybe it's just called The Court of the Dragon. It might be one of those title tracks where the title is slightly different from the title of the album. You get those in metal sometimes, particularly, or I've seen them more than once, but similar to Fate of Norns and then The Fate of Norns by Amon Amarth, The Fate of Norns being the song. But anyway, I didn't even like the song. Like, I heard it multiple times on Metal Zone to the point where I'd be like, oh, they're playing that song again in the Court of the Dragon. I think I might have even heard it while I was still in jail. I heard it multiple times on Metal Zone to the point of, like, dreading it. And, like, when he said In the Court of the Dragon, or when I heard the song, it was like, oh, this song again. But then I heard that the album was good, and the cover was really beautiful, the album cover, and the band's name is Trivium, and Mark Passio was talking about the Trivium, and it was like the learning system that apparently like some Roman like guard or something, like some Roman soldier had been like teaching one of the slaves the learning system of the Roman whatever, the royal class, or whoever used it. Whomever used whatever he was teaching like a slave the Trivium, and then like the person who was like writing the diary entry or something, I think, like said like he told the soldier like, no, you cannot teach slaves the Trivium. Like the Trivium, if you teach slaves the Trivium, they're not going to be fucking slaves anymore. they're not going to want to be slaves anymore, or they're just not going to be slaves anymore or something. And it's just like, don't do that. Like, if you do that again, you're going to be exiled or something. And so it was like, oh shit, like, that made an impression hearing about that anecdote about the Trivium. But so Mark Passio, he talked about the Trivium, and it's like, okay, Trivium. And it's like, okay, In the Court of the Dragon. Okay, people said the album was good. Okay, it's got a cool cover. Okay, fine, I'll buy it. I love that album. I fucking love it. But I didn't like that song for a while. Now I like that song a lot. I like the album. It's such a good album. And it's in the Matt Thoughts 2 post, I think I'll have it say something along the lines of like, this is one of the albums where when I listen to it, I think, or often it's like, how is metalcore not like just the best music genre? Like, it seems like metalcore is just the best genre. It's so good. It's glorious. It's beautiful. It's like churning ocean tides. It's so good. And anyway, but Lamb of God feels like that too. And I think they might be deemed groove metal, but maybe metalcore. I don't know. Anyway, that album is good enough that I saw a Trivium album for $6 called Shogun. I looked on the back. It appears to have come out in 2008. I don't know what this album is. I'm not really impressed by the album cover for this one. It looks kind of like cheap and just not that attractive. Maybe similar to the Domination album cover by Morbid Angel in terms of it just like looking kind of unpleasant. But I got Shogun by Trivium. That I'll be interested to hear. I almost walked out without getting that, but I saw that just before I was about to walk up to the register, and I'm like, $6 Trivium album. I'll check it out. See if it's good, and we'll see. So that I'm looking forward to. Some of the song titles look kind of cool, sort of intellectual type stuff. I guess it would be. The band's name is Trivium. I imagine it's sort of a reference to the Trivium. But next album. Human by Death. It was 10% off, open bag, it said. I guess the little bag it's in is kind of torn or something. It was $15.99, but it's the double disc one, and it has a bunch of shit, basic instrumental studio tracks on the back, and or on the second disc, and demos. Some of the Death albums, like, they have double disc where they have like a live album essentially as a double disc. I love when they include. I don't tend to buy live albums by themselves, but when they include live albums as like a second disc, it tends to be really good. Like the Elliott Smith self-titled album, live album, is just unbelievable. It's like magic. They recorded somebody doing actual magic for an intimate crowd of people. Elliott Smith, like, it seems early on in his career, maybe the people in the crowd, you can sort of hear him talking. You can hear him talking, and it seems like they don't even know who he is, and this guy just gets up, and it's like, it's beautiful because it's Elliott Smith. It's like, oh my God, this is like a man performing miracles in front of me in a dimly lit bar. And in the Megadeth, I think it's the Rust in Peace. No, not Rust in Peace. I think it's Peace Sells. There's a second disc that is like the drunkest concert you've ever. It sounds like Dave Mustaine is just fucking wasted. And at first, like, you listen to it, and perhaps maybe it's this way with Elliott Smith too. When I listened to it before I was as familiar with the album, it's actually like, they almost play the first two albums in their entirety from their career. Like, it's a lot. It's longer than the frickin' album Peace Sells. But when I first heard it, when I was listening to it earlier on, I wasn't as familiar with these songs, especially with the songs from Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good that they played in that, which hadn't even listened to Killing Is My Business, didn't have it at all. But now I like listen to it knowing the songs, and it's so good. Dave Mustaine he sounds fucking wasted. Some of the best ad-lib stuff ever. Like, he starts playing Devil's Island. He's like, I bet there are people in this room that have broken the law. Maybe some people who even spent a night in jail. Something to be very proud of on Devil's Island. And like, they rip into it. It's such a good live album. I love when they put live albums. And Death has a good one too. I think I think it's this bonus disc for, I almost said the name of an album that you're about to hear me talk about in the music hall, but maybe as a bonus disc for Independent Thought Patterns, but maybe as the bonus disc for Leprosy. I think it might be the Leprosy bonus disc. No, I think the Leprosy one just has mainly a bunch of Leprosy songs, but that's some cool stuff. I think that's another one where I've got to, it would do well for me to be more familiar with the songs they're playing, and they're songs from like a different album, I think, generally. Maybe some from that album. But anyway, yeah, Death, they might become like my favorite band. I think exploring Death, it just seems like they are right up my alley. They are so good. They are so hardcore. They are so uncompromising. They are so raw. They are so sort of avant-garde. They're so technical. The lyrics are so hard-hitting. They're really strict lyrics. Like, he's talking about morality and stuff, and he's just like screaming, wailing about this shit. It's so good. And so Human, one of Death's albums, and thus probably a pretty good one. People tend to say that Death has a pretty much, if people, I don't think they say they have a perfect discography, or more rarely do they say that, but people generally, when they're talking about the Death discography, they generally like say, yeah, all the albums are good. All the albums are good, and then some of them are like really good. And I think Human is one that some people tend to say is really good. Maybe. Anyway. Next album. And these are all used except for the last one. Next album, Images and Words by Dream Theater. It has Pull Me Under, which I heard that song on Metal Zone while I was in jail. And I heard that song and I was like, I think this is the greatest song I've ever listened to. It was actually the second, because I was listening to House of Hair, which came on before the Metal Zone, intended to play more like hair metal, but they were playing Hangar 18 by Megadeth, and I said to a guy next to me, I was like, I think this is the best song I've ever heard. And he put on like his little radio and went to it, and he like smiled and like nodded his head. Like, I think he was just kind of humoring me, or even like, even like not being very nice to me. Maybe he was just sort of like, yeah, like, like sort of looking at me like I was uncool or something for liking a song. But I don't know. He was a fun enough guy. But anyway, it happened with that, but then it happened later with Pull Me Under, where I was like, oh my God, this song, it just took me on a journey the entire way. And people generally point to this as one of Dream Theater's better albums. I've listened to this, I got it out from the library, but I did not burn it to my, I did not burn it into my iTunes. And so now I have the CD, and I will put it on my iTunes, and I'm looking forward to it. And it has Metropolis Part 1 on it, The Miracle and the Sleeper, and I was watching the Cover Killer Nation top 50 albums. His top 50 albums, it's like one of his very last videos. I think it was his last video that wasn't sort of just kind of saying like farewell and stuff like that. And I think he said like Metropolis Part 2, like he had that as one of his top 50 albums, and he's like, go listen to this. He's like, listen to this fucking album. Like he said, I think he said that about multiple of the albums, but I think he said like, take this as your homework assignment. Listen to Metropolis Part 2 by Dream Theater. So I've got Metropolis Part 1 on this later in the day after the early morning hours at work, listening to some of that Cover Killer Nation thing. So, but anyway, yeah, this Dream Theater, I like Dream Theater well enough, and I really like, I like their album that I have. I have one album by them, and it's Distance Over Time, which is an awesome name for a metal album, because Distance Over Time is velocity, I think. Distance Over Time is just speed, right? So essentially the name of the album is Speed, but it's Distance Over Time, and it has like a robotic hand holding a human skull. That album I described as like the Goodnight Moon of metal. That's one of their newer albums and generally well liked, but this is one of their earlier albums and generally well liked as well. So more well liked probably. Oh, and there's the little symbol that Matt McKinley sometimes refers to, the Dream Theater logo. I don't know if he's really listened to Dream Theater, but he talks about their logo being so-called creepy. But anyway, And the final CD is, of course, the new Aesop Rock CD. Yes, I didn't get it until now. It's the 15th of November, but I finally got it, and it is Integrated Tech Solutions, Aesop.
Welcome to Matt's Book Reviews. So I officially have all my old, or as I imagine, all of the audio files that I made for Matt's Book Reviews, formerly known as Matt's Book Corner, saved, or I've gotten them all taken off my phone in terms of retrieving them from my phone and having them available to make videos with. So this may end up coming out as with maybe another before this, or maybe one or two, I don't know, or whatever. However many may end up coming out a decent amount of time after the most recent upload in terms of when they are uploaded, but oh well. Okay, so I was reading a few poems, and I will read at least this one poem. It was William Blake, and quite the effing poem. It starts sort of whimsical and it's just a nice little scene he's setting up. It's like a nursery rhyme, and then at the end it's like, ooh, oh boy. Okay, so here it is. How sweet I roamed from field to field. How sweet I roamed from field to field, and tasted all the summer's pride, till I the Prince of Love beheld, who in the sunny beams did glide. Oh, yeah, okay. He shewed me lilies for my hair, and blushing roses for my brow. He led me through his gardens fair, where all his golden pleasures grow. When sweet May dews my wings, with sweet May dews my wings were wet, and Phoebus furred my vocal rage. He caught me in his silken net, and shut me in his golden cage. He loves to sit and hear me sing, then laughing sports and plays with me, then stretches out my golden wing, and mocks my loss of liberty. Now that was bizarre for many reasons. It was 4 stanzas, so 16 lines. It was is that generally the length of a rap verse? Well, there you go. But it was it was good, but it started with, just sort of a pastoral scene, just going along on the farmland, but then I remembered it actually as a female. I think I remembered it as a female character, not a male character, that is guiding this speaker along. So maybe the speaker is female, or I don't know, maybe it was some kind of maybe some kind of idea of some gay thing. But from William Blake, I'm not sure that would be the case, but who knows. But then in any case, there's this sort of serene scene, and this character being led through this sort of heavenly nature setting, just very, very much removed from normal reality in the common way, in the way of I don't know, just how it comes off. And then it sort of darkens, and it's almost like coming down from a high or something, and so it goes from where all his golden pleasures grow to, with sweet May dews my wings were wet, and Phoebus furred my vocal rage. He caught me in his silken net, and shut me in his golden cage. He loves to sit and hear me sing, then laughing sports and plays with me, then stretches out my golden wing and mocks my loss of liberty. So this, it's sort of it is sort of like a fairy tale kind of story. Like this character is being led into this like land of like pleasure and temptation, or just there may indeed be some like homoeroticism in there. I'm not sure. See, this you wonder like, was this written in such a different culture that that wouldn't even be like a thought? Like if some like, was the culture so different that like to sort of say like, oh, it seems like this might be kind of homoerotic, like was their culture so different that to suspect that would just like that just wouldn't be like suspected by anybody because it was just like not something that was like common or something, like not something that was really part of their culture, let's say. And yeah, I don't know. Or was it just sort of like, that was some context that was in there, and it was kind of like like kind of gay stuff, at least in the sense of it's seeming, even like with the name Phoebus. I remember a character named Phoebe in Hey Arnold, the Nickelodeon show, and it was like the character was a girl. And so maybe it's just me remembering Phoebe, but then I also think Phoebe was also the name of one of the characters from Friends, I think. I'm not an expert on Friends. Last I watched of Friends was in college, I think, or maybe like I tried looking at it 2 or 3 more times since then, but like it was in college. There were these girls, and they were like, "Let's watch through Friends," and like I watched an episode, and it was like, this is just, I don't know, just something about it. It just didn't seem like to connect with me. Then again, I will say, somebody also, one of my friends also had brought like a DVD from that his parents had of Mad Men to college, and like we watched one of the episodes, and I felt sort of the same way. It was like, although maybe in a different way. Like I'm not sure I would say I felt the same way, but in any case, my response to it was also just sort of like, like I'm really not that in. It's just like, okay, like I'm not really. That also sort of happened with The Wire, when I think the same friend and I were like watching it years beforehand, actually, and I think, or something, some amount of time. It wasn't that long, but it was like longer than I might think looking back on it. But like he got The Wire from Netflix when Netflix was still primarily, I think he got it from there when Netflix was still primarily the DVD like service that they sent you DVDs in the mail, and not primarily, or even maybe at all yet, the streaming website that it became, but that it is, or to whatever design that it is. But Wire, The Wire, the HBO show The Wire, I remember it was just like, like I just back then, I don't think I really had the sense of like TV shows being sort of similarly like artistic to movies and stuff. But then I did watch 6 Feet Under with a couple of my other friends, and it was good. It was great, actually. We were like on the edge of our seat through pretty much the whole thing. Like one person would buy one season, the next person would buy the next season. I guess nobody was doing the Netflix for this, or maybe somebody at some point did, but essentially, anyway, I ended up buying the 5th season, and yeah, I mean, it was just, it's quite a show. But I still don't think I was watching it in the way that I would like an art house film or something. But anyway, yeah. So to go back to the William Blake thing, whatever the subtext context might have been, or seems to be, or was, the end of the poem, like the second half of the poem, actually, the last 2 stanzas go like super dark, where this guy's something, Phoebus furred my vocal rage. Oh, and also, I'm not sure what or who Phoebus is, but it sounds kind of occult. And so I wonder if there was anything to a character from Friends, which was like this big popular like older person show, and a character from Hey Arnold, which was this big popular younger person show, both being named Phoebe. A bigger character in Friends than the character in Hey Arnold, but I mean, the character in Hey Arnold, though she wasn't a primary character, she was like a fairly consistent secondary character. So, man, Hey Arnold had a lot of good characters. That show was really, really good. It's a cliche to say, but I mean, Nicktoons in the '90s, SpongeBob is just the earlier SpongeBob, at least, maybe even later, who knows? But SpongeBob, work of art. The Rugrats before, I'd say before Baby Dill. Even as a kid, when I wasn't as like, like I don't even know how. I don't even know like the idea of not liking a show. It's like back then it would be like, well, this is a show that's on TV. It wasn't so much about liking it or not. It was just about like, well, this is one of the shows, like. But now I'd look back and say like, I didn't really. It was just like the Baby Dill episodes and beyond for Rugrats, just like just something about it changed. Actually, interestingly, like really like substantially something it seemed to change. Maybe I just didn't like the character of Baby Dill, but maybe one thing about it is how it's so weird that Baby Dill doesn't speak, but all the other babies do, but the adults don't hear them speaking because they're, it's like in a sort of a cartoon world way, they're sort of speaking to each other but not being heard by the parents. Similarly to the adults in Charlie Brown, when they speak, it's just like wah 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 wah. Like that's what you hear. You hear some like nonsense sounds, and it's like, it's just the adults can't hear the babies, but then it's like, why can't the babies hear the other baby? It's like, well, you might say he's a newborn baby, and it's like, well, how long until Baby Dill starts talking then, right? Like, because it's not like Tommy Pickles is that old. I don't know. Anyway, this poem it got so dark and it was so powerful throughout. And so let's finish with reading it one more time. And this will be maybe a Matt poetry hour in less than an hour, probably. Okay. How sweet I roamed from field to field. How sweet I roamed from field to field and tasted all the summer's pride, till I the Prince of Love beheld, who in the sunny beams did glide. He shewed me lilies for my hair, and blushing roses for my brow. He led me through his gardens fair, where all his golden pleasures grow. With sweet May dews my wings were wet, and Phoebus furred my vocal rage. He caught me in his silken net, and shut me in his golden cage. He loves to sit and hear me sing, then laughing, sports and plays with me, then stretches out my golden wing, and mocks my loss of liberty. William Blake. 1700/1800 and something.
So, welcome to Matt's Book Reviews. Book Corner was probably a more accurate title because I'm not doing a lot of reviewing of books. Although I guess, I talked about what I thought of really various books, from this one to that one. But anyway, I sense that I've sort of maybe not cracked the code, but found sort of a hack to crack the code with. And that hack is short stories. I recorded a video. I don't think I'm going to post it, but essentially what I was saying was Edgar Allan Poe, I think he said in his review of Twice Told Tales by Nathaniel Hawthorne that short fiction, short stories, are sort of the ideal mode of fiction writing or fiction reading, really, because you can read them sort of comfortably in one sitting. You could sit there and read a whole novel in one sitting. Shout out to Brian Lee Durfee, who, according to him, he'll go to the park or something and sit there for 4 hours and read a whole book, like a whole 200 plus page book. So, but I think he's fairly unusual, and I'm not sure how unbroken his attention is, or how relatively unbroken it is for that time. But what Edgar Allan Poe was saying, I think, was something along the lines of, this story that you're reading, if you sort of pause, stop reading it, and then come back to it, you're being, maybe not being taken out of, but you're going out of the experience of reading the story for however long that you're having a gap between starting it and finishing it. And that, takes you out of it. It's like listening to part of a song rather than a whole song, or you could say like part of an album, or maybe like a classical composition. Whatever the unit is, I think Edgar Allan Poe, essentially, I think his idea was, whatever the unit of like entertainment or art or whatever, it would do well, or you would do well to be able to, or just to do a full, reading or run through of it in one sitting. Now, that is a preamble to sort of support the idea of just reading short stories in general, but in this case, I think reading short stories could be very helpful to me, partially given that I started out reading more short stories, or at least, a while ago when I was reading Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury writes primarily short stories, even like the Martian Chronicles. Some might consider that like a novel or something, but it's essentially a short story collection with sort of a connecting theme. A little more connected than The Illustrated Man is. And there's some great stuff in The Illustrated Man, but that is a short story collection sort of with a framing motif. And neither of them, would I say, seem as together of a work as like The Last Wish, the Witcher book that I'm currently on, the first one, which is a short story collection with sort of like a framing story, I guess, to start it, end it, and go between each of the stories. And I've already seen that the framing story between the first and the second, full story or non-framing story in the book, seems to be referring to what happened, at least, the second popping up of the framing story refers to the first story in between the framing material. It basically, it's referring to that. I wonder if it's going to refer to each story in each next part of the framing story. I don't know. That might end up being a little cute, or like a little pat, just sort of a little like artificial maybe, but I could see it working out well. I could see that being a fairly integrative process for the book to go through. And, but anyway, I would read more short stories back in the day, whether it be Ray Bradbury stories or Stephen King stories. Stephen King, his first 4 short story collections, I would say, are, in one way or another, really good. That would be Night Shift, Skeleton Crew, Nightmares, and Dreamscapes, and Everything's Eventual. And Everything's Eventual is sort of a later one. But after that, just after Sunset and The Bazaar of Bad Dreams, what I've read and listened to of those, just like, just it seems like just sort of a blander, more diluted Stephen King. And of course you've got your like rave reviews from the, you know, whatever publications or sources they had the reviews for on those books, at least just after sunset. But I think also The Bazaar of Bad Dreams. But it's like, you know, like there's this story about like an old man sitting in a kitchen, and there's this image of like the dust motes and the sunlight or something in the story, and it's like maybe if I read the story again, I'll get more into it, but they sort of classify it as like some kind of like sort of transcendent or like powerful, mature story. And in this case, mature seems to be just a nice word to apply to something that's just kind of dull. And, you know, as I said in the, you know, music hall episode, I think I'm not, you know, I'm the type of guy who hears about like the movie Coda or whatever movie it was. Maybe it was Roma, I don't know. But whatever movie it was where Ben Shapiro was saying like, hey, there's a 5-minute shot of just a fountain. Who's gonna sit there and watch just a 5-minute shot of a fountain or something? It's like, that sounds kind of cool to me. I like that artsy stuff. And I actually am often feeling more entertained with artsy stuff, like the book A Single Man, for example. It's just sort of like an artsy meditation on things in the main character's life. You know, there was a movie with Colin Firth that was pretty decent, pretty good, based on it. But, you know, the book is just, it's a quick read. It's not that long of a book either, but it's very artsy. It's very like, it has a lot of stuff. Has a lot of stuff in it that's just sort of conversational and kind of like similar to reading White Noise by Don DeLillo, where it's not so much like a plot book as, you know, kind of like a, I don't know, a book where the, you know, narrator talks about ideas and stuff. But anyway, this is to go back to the Stephen King thing, where it's just like, you know, I'm a fan of like sort of more subtle, more less action-packed stuff. A lot of the times with sort of so-called action-packed movies and books and all that other stuff, it's often duller, because it's just like, okay, well, there's one like character punching another character. It's okay, like there's nothing particularly interesting going on here. You know, not that I didn't love John Wick Part 2, not that, you know, like that movie, even the movie with, what's his name, that seemed like sort of a John Wick type of thing, Bob Odenkirk, I think it's called Nobody, where he just goes around like punching people and stuff. Like, I like that movie. I like Atomic Blonde. That has some good action sequences. I'm not, you know, there are action things that I like, but at the same time, I think I tend to go more for sort of like a mature thing, sort of an artistic, an artsy element in the story. But, you know, with that Stephen King one, it just felt kind of thin to me. I think I read the whole story. It wasn't that long anyway, in Just After Sunset, with the old guy in the kitchen. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying, yeah, the short stories, I think I developed some like endurance for going on to actually read the whole books that I would go on to read through reading short stories more often. And it was like, for a while I was more of a short story reader, and like I think it might have been in On Writing. Maybe it was in Dance Macabre, or maybe it was even in like the introduction to Night Shift or something, but that's his first short story collection. But something by Stephen King, he writes about how like short stories are like sort of, you know, ice picks in the darkness, whereas like novels and stuff are like long affairs, and generally I think he was saying like he prefers the affairs, but the short stories can be good. And he was even saying how like his short story collections don't perform as well as his novels, blah blah blah. But you know, I kept an eye out for short story collections. Like I was, you know, a fan of short stories. Like if an author had a short story collection, that's what I would go to. Even into my reading of like Don DeLillo books and stuff, it was like, oh, The Angel Esmeralda, it's a short story collection. That'd be cool. I'd like to read that. And in any case, I think that my reading was really helped by reading these short stories. And so I think if I set it up where, like I say, I'm going to read 3 short stories a week, and I actually do that, and preferably even read each of them in one sitting, as Edgar Allan Poe would recommend, and also as one might recommend who would say that if you read the whole thing in one sitting, then you will have finished it, rather than reading part of it and then maybe not going back to it, or going back to it for a while anyway. But yeah, it just, I think if I read more short stories, and like maybe even essays and maybe poems, just more short form things in general, but short stories particularly. But maybe it would work the same for reading essays and then reading like, you know, whole nonfiction books. Maybe it would be a similar level of training to get more into just into reading anything. Yeah, you know, like, I don't know, I think maybe I've gone past like the smaller repetitions and, you know, have been like, oh, you know, I'd like to read this whole book or that whole book. And then sometimes I do end up reading them, like with the books I read on probation, or the books I read in prison, or, you know, the whole books I've read prior to all that stuff. But right now, I think it would be more strategic for me, and I would recommend this to other people who are sort of finding it difficult to get into the habit, or, you know, the successful act of reading full books. Oh god. Fucking asshole. This fucking douche. Okay, so yeah, you know, like, say I were to read 3 short stories a week, I think not only would I then be reading 3 short stories a week, which would likely mean that I'm reading more than I'm currently getting read anyway, but I think then I will also sort of get it back into the habit of reading, and then it'll be something that I'm more just drawn to naturally and that I stay with longer, similarly to how when I started posting more blog posts, I got more into the habit of writing. Although that said, like, somebody literally said to me in the second prison that I was in, like, you write a lot. Like, I'd sit there and just, like, you know, I'd always be asking for extra, like, paper and stuff to write on, and just, like, write little lists or write little schedules or write, like, things to give my lawyer more information about, like, what was wrong with this document, or, you know, give him information about this or that. You know, I'd write, or like little journal entries for, at least in the first prison. By the way, pro tip in prison, if you are like writing stuff down, keep a good hold on it, because someone can come and steal it from you and then try to use it against you. Or they might even like steal paperwork from you that you've been writing on and then write their own little things or draw their own little things on it and try to pass it off as yours. You know, prison isn't a nice place. Although, you know, different prison settings are, you know, more and less nice than other ones, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I think, so I bought Night Shift I already had Night Shift, but in like throwing out various books for having moved to California years ago, and then throwing out some books on the way back from California, and just in general, like I don't have a lot of the books that I used to have, and I don't have all of Stephen King's short story collections like I used to have. Although The Bazaar of Bad Dreams I only ever had on ebook, which I still have on ebook actually on my Kindle. And my Kindle is sort of like a Kindle graveyard, because I think that Amazon account may no longer be operational, but I still have the ebooks that I had on my Kindle. So it's sort of like a little library of whatever ebooks I had. But yeah, I think just reading like shorter form stuff, but sort of, doing so regularly will help me read long form stuff.
Welcome to Matt's Book Reviews. So this one we've got some time for, because I think I recorded what's like a really fantastic gameplay video of GTA 5. I think it might be a really good one. And there is another really good one that I have on... I hope I have it. I think I still have it on my... if the hard drive isn't just like a failure and everything I put on it just sort of doesn't go anywhere from the PS4, I think I have it. I hope I have it on the portable hard drive that I've been putting PS4 gameplay footage on, because that would be the only place it is. It's funny because I've been wondering literally for years if that video was lost, and then I got off probation and I was able to play my PS4, and so I checked on the PS4 and that video is still there. And that video, I don't know if I'm going to be able to post it with this one. That would be quite the thing if I ended up being able to post it with this one, but I don't know. Oh, you know what? I'm not sure if the Mac will even be able to see it. To some extent, I hope that it will. I may be like screwing up the data while I speak here. So this is going to be really entertaining, or it's going to be really dull. So no, I'm just kidding. It'll be really dull either way. Just kidding. Okay. So here we go. Stopped using this USB storage device. Okay, good. I didn't click format the storage device. That was the first hurdle. Okay, now I can safely disconnect it, so says the PS4. Now I will safely connect it, hopefully, to my laptop. And I tell you, where is my laptop? Oh, there it is. I will tell you, this video is legendary. It's legendary to me. I don't know if there's a person on earth. I think there might be one person who's seen it. I don't even know if he's seen it, but this is a legendary video. It's so good that the day I post it, everyone's just going to say, whoa. Okay, so did I get a nice YouTube comment or a mean one? Oh, for you, Courtney Ryan. Most of the YouTube comments I've been getting are nice, actually. It's kind of nice. Okay, let's see if this comes up. If it does, and I can take the files. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Oh, yeah! I'm on my Mac computer, and I'm able to access the files on my portable hard drive. Oh my God. The beginning of this video is going to be that video.
this is going to be a super long episode because we're going to have that video in full as it is. Actually, that video plus the one right after it, if you must know. Let's see, 1026. Yeah, okay. I know what the screenshot, I know what the picture of it looks like, or what the picture of it that they had on the PlayStation still image of it looks like. But I'm not sure I know what the image looks like. I'm not sure if they'll have the same image for it. I doubt they will, actually, on the file. Oh my, it feels like everything I go to, the images get smaller and smaller. No, I can't even see this. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna actually have to like Sherlock Holmes this, but you know how you Sherlock Holmes it? You look for something that's a similar amount of time to what you remember it being. And a similar amount of time would be a similar size. And it was a longer video. So we'll start by looking at the sizes. And and we'll start by looking at the sizes, and we will proceed to look also at the date of the video being made. And I think it might have been in February 2019 that the video was made. How good would that be? Can you imagine me finding it based on this? Can you imagine all the people that'll flock to this channel and they'll say, this is like a Sherlock Holmes deduction story. And you know what? I think I may have just found it. No, I didn't. I found a different video, but screw it. That video is probably good too. Oh my God, though. Look, okay. So it wasn't February. When was it? This is a tough one. Maybe it starts when the video starts, in which case, here's the other thing. There's a shorter video saying mission accomplished, I think. Or no, that video says mission accomplished. I know where I was, so if there's a picture of the character outside the house, outside the place that I was at the end of the video, that will be it. Oh, goodness. Okay. This is a tough one. No, that's not it. Now, what I can do, I didn't realize it was going to be such a difficult thing to find these. Oh, here's another video that's just gold. Okay, that's the last one, only other than the one or the ones that I find for this thing here. Now, these videos are gold. These videos are, this video is gold. This audio may not be gold. But if I find it, well, here's the thing. I'm going to find it. It may take a while, but when I find this, yeah, are you kidding me? You know how I found it? By finding the video that was after it in the sequence. I saw Michael standing there. Thank goodness I took this video. This saved me a lot of time today, and may include it. I saw Michael standing there. It looked like he was in the cutscene that he went to pretty much directly following the end of the other video, as directly as there's footage for, I guess, probably. And now was the 24th of December 2009 or January 2019, I think. So let's look for that. 2019, the 21st. Or wait, no. 2019, 01, 24th. Okay, 24th. So 0124. Now, you might say, why aren't you just searching it in the search bar and then find it in the folder? Because for some reason, my Mac is like, it's so bad at doing searches that like it seems like it's intentionally bad. Like literally,
stuff that I just saved, files that I just created even. When I go to sort it by date modified, it puts it like all the way at the bottom with a bunch of other files. And it'll put like, if it's a generic enough term I'm searching for to find files, it'll put like dozens of files ahead of it. It's so bad at searching for things, not to mention how much difficulty it has searching things in like portable hard drives and stuff. I mean, it's just, maybe the portable hard drive thing will be better, but I don't want to lose my place in the hard drive. I found it. But it's brutal at searching. But let's try it. Matt, still do a search. Okay. 2019 01 24. 2019 01 24. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I got it then. Oh, I either made a shitload of videos that day, or I don't know. 01 221615 0124 210. Aha! And now let's search by name, and we got it. Oh wait, do we have it? Yeah, I think this is probably it. No, that's not it. Well, I think I'm still on the case. See, we're doing the Sherlock Holmes thing here. This is quite the event that's going on before your very ears. Boy. 012421. Yeah, I think this is it. Is it? Sirs, ladies and gentlemen, it was the one underneath it in the list of files, not the one above it. Now let's put that with the video I just took, or maybe as a separate video from the video I just took on YouTube, all right? And now I know, oh, there's not enough disk space on my computer. Oh boy, okay. How do I deal with this problem? Yet another issue? Oh no. Okay. How do I deal with this problem? Is actually, you know how I deal with it? I put in my other portable hard drive that I do backups on my computer with, and I do a backup just generally, just because I should do a backup, but then B, prior to the backup, I put this on that because that has enough space to hold it, and then it will be easily findable after I clear up the space from the other, from the computer's like internal memory. That felt like a bit of a Freudian phrasing there, from the other thing, from the other computer, as if the portable hard drive is a computer, but do they count as computers? Oh man, I don't know where this frickin' thing is. Now this is the, aha! I think I do know where it is. But it's not in a good place. Hold on. No, it wasn't there. Oh boy. I was looking in basically a hamper. Okay. Where is it? You know what I'll do before I find it? I'll roll a portable cigarette. I'll roll a portable cigarette. But I will roll a cigarette though.
But where is this portable hard drive? Now that's, you know what? I want to do a backup anyway, and also I might as well look for my hard drive if I don't know where it is and find it so that I know where it is. But where might it be? And you might say, what the hell kind of video is this? He's not talking about books. He's talking about video games and hard drives. I don't know if he's joking, if he's making an innuendo. And it's just like a really dry, long comedy routine that just never ends. And there's this Grand Theft Auto video that's playing over it that somebody brilliantly found the files for on his portable hard drive. And now he's brilliantly searching for another portable hard drive that he can just move those files onto. So it appears that every step of the way, perhaps even steps that he doesn't remember himself. Oh, this is the hamper that it would have been in the hamper thing. Every step of the way, there's been just an incredible struggle to get this great Grand Theft Auto video, according to what he says about it, from the clutches of time itself, from 2019, before any of this stuff happened to him, just rescuing a little piece of his past so that we can all enjoy the coolest victory of all time in Grand Theft Auto 5 mission. Now how is he ever going to pull this off? You might say he's a madman. I don't know how he pulled it off so far, but how is this going to end in all of the prophecies coming true? To that, he would say, well, how has it ended so far? Every time you've heard it happen here, he has found the way to just an incredible resolution.